$5 million. That's what they offered her. A check. A plane ticket. A new life anywhere she wanted. All she had to do was disappear. The old woman slid the envelope across the table. Cold. Calm. Certain. You're an intelligent woman. You know what his life is. Blood. Enemies. Danger. She leaned forward. Take the money. Leave. And I'll let you keep your dignity. Natasha looked at the envelope. Then at the woman. I didn't survive my own battles to run from his. She pushed the money back. Keep it. The old woman's eyes went hard. Then you've made your choice. This is a story about loyalty. About love. About a man raised in blood who fell for a woman who refused to bow. And a mother who had to decide. Was her son's happiness worth more than her pride? Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button. And drop a comment telling me, would you stay with someone if their family rejected you? Let's get into it. Seoul, South Korea. Winter. 1995. The snow was falling thick that night, covering the city in white silence. But in a narrow alley behind a fish market, a 9-year-old boy was dying. His name was Park Tae-hyun. At least, that's the name he would be given later. Back then, he had no name. No family. No identity. Just hunger. And cold. And the slow, creeping certainty that tonight would be his last. He had been on the streets for 2 years. His mother? Gone. Vanished one morning and never came back. His father? He never knew the man. The orphanage? He ran away after the beatings got too bad. So he survived the only way he knew how. Stealing. Hiding. Fighting. And slowly losing. That night, he had given up. He curled against a wall, closed his eyes, and waited for the cold to finish what the world had started. But then, a car stopped. Not a police car. Not an ambulance. A black car. Expensive. The kind that belonged to people who didn't ask questions, they gave orders. The door opened. And out stepped a woman. She was tall. Elegant. Dressed in a coat that cost more than most people made in a year. Her name was Sumin Park. And she was the most dangerous woman in South Korea. She didn't run charities. She didn't rescue orphans out of kindness. She ran an empire. A criminal empire. Built on blood, loyalty, and fear. Her husband had been murdered 5 years earlier. And instead of collapsing, she took over. Expanded. Became a queen in a world of violent men. So why did she stop that night? Why did she look at this half-frozen boy and see something worth saving? She never explained it. Not fully. But years later, she would tell him this. I saw your eyes. Even dying, you were still watching. Still calculating. Most men beg for mercy at the end. You were looking for a weapon. She brought him to her home. Fed him. Clothed him. Gave him medicine. And then, she gave him a choice. You can leave in the morning. I'll give you money. You can try to survive on your own. She paused. Or, you can stay. Become my son. Learn what I know. And never be powerless again. The boy didn't hesitate. I'll stay. And from that moment, his old life was dead. He became Park Tae-hyun, son of Sumin Park, heir to an empire of shadows. 29 years later, Tae-hyun is no longer a boy. He is 38 years old. Tall. Controlled. Impeccably dressed. His face reveals nothing. His voice never rises. His movements are precise. To the outside world, he is a businessman. Investor. Philanthropist, even. But in the underworld, he is something else entirely. He is his mother's right hand. Her enforcer. Her weapon. He has done things that would make ordinary men lose sleep for the rest of their lives. But Tae-hyun doesn't lose sleep. He was trained not to. Mrs. Park raised him with a single philosophy. Emotions are weaknesses. Attachments are chains. The only loyalty that matters is family. And for 29 years, he believed her. He gave her everything. His youth. His conscience. His capacity for softness. He killed when she asked. He negotiated when she demanded. He built her empire higher and never once questioned whether he was happy. Because happiness was not part of the deal. Survival was. Power was. But happiness? That was for other people. Until one autumn afternoon, when everything changed. Her name was Natasha Ellis, 33 years old, African American, a trauma surgeon from Chicago. She had moved to Seoul 6 months earlier to take a position at one of the country's top hospitals. It was a prestigious job, a fresh start, and a chance to escape a past she didn't like to talk about. See, Natasha had spent her 20s in survival mode too. Not on the streets like Taehyun, but in operating rooms. 12-hour shifts. Patients who died no matter how hard she tried. And a relationship that nearly broke her. His name doesn't matter. What matters is this. He wanted her to be smaller, quieter, less ambitious. And when she refused, he made her pay for it. Not with fists. He was too smart for that. With words. With isolation. With the slow, patient destruction of her confidence. It took her 5 years to leave. And another 2 to remember who she was. Now, at 33, Natasha was rebuilt. Stronger. Clearer. Unshakable. She didn't date. She didn't trust easily. She focused on her work. On her patients. On becoming the best. And she told herself that was enough. Then she met him. It happened at a street market. Natasha was off duty. Walking. Clearing her head. The market was crowded. Vendors selling fish, vegetables, knockoff handbags. And then, a man collapsed. An elderly vendor. Clutching his chest. Face going gray. People panicked. Stepped back. Pulled out phones to record instead of help. But Natasha moved. She pushed through the crowd. Dropped to her knees. Started assessing. No pulse. Not breathing. She began CPR immediately. Someone call an ambulance. No. She worked for 3 minutes. 4. 5. Her arms burned. Sweat dripped down her face. But she didn't stop. And then, a heartbeat. Faint. But there. By the time paramedics arrived, the man was breathing on his own. Natasha sat back. Exhausted. Covered in street grime. And that's when she noticed him. A man standing at the edge of the crowd. Tall. Still. Watching her. Not with the same curiosity as everyone else. With something deeper. Something like recognition. Their eyes met. He didn't smile. Didn't speak. He just nodded once and walked away. Natasha didn't think much of it. Until 3 days later, when he appeared at her hospital. He introduced himself as a donor. Park Taehyun. Businessman. Interested in supporting the hospital's trauma unit. His voice was calm. Professional. But Natasha noticed the way he looked at her. Like he was trying to solve a puzzle. We've met before, he said. The market. He nodded. You saved that man's life. I'm a surgeon. That's what I do. Most surgeons wait for the operating room. You didn't hesitate. She shrugged. Hesitation costs lives. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect? Interest? She couldn't tell. He left that day without asking for anything. But he came back. The next week. And the week after that. Always professional. Always respectful. But always present. Eventually, Natasha confronted him. Are you actually interested in funding the trauma unit? Or are you here to see me? He considered the question. Both. She almost laughed. That's honest. I've been told I'm too honest sometimes. By who? My mother. There it was. Something human. Something almost soft. Natasha studied him. All right, Mr. Park. One dinner. That's all I'm agreeing to. He nodded. That's all I'm asking. But they both knew it wouldn't stop at one dinner. For 3 months, they existed in a bubble. Dinners. Long walks. Late-night phone calls. Taehyun was different with her. Not the cold enforcer. Not the ruthless businessman. With Natasha, he was almost tender. She noticed the way he listened, actually listened, when she talked. She noticed how he remembered small details. Her favorite tea. The song that made her homesick. The way she rubbed her temples when she was tired. And she noticed the sadness. It was always there. Just beneath the surface. Like he was carrying something heavy and had forgotten how to put it down. She asked him about his past. He told her he was adopted, that his biological parents were gone, that his mother, his adoptive mother, had given him everything. He didn't mention the blood, the violence, the empire. Not yet, because for the first time in his life, Taehyun was terrified. Not of enemies, not of death. He was terrified of losing her. And he knew if she discovered who he really was, she would run. So he kept the truth locked away and pretended he was someone he wasn't. But secrets have a way of escaping. It happened at 2 in the morning. Natasha was on duty when the call came in. Multiple gunshot wounds. 2 patients. Critical condition. She met them in the ER. The first patient, a young man, barely 20, had taken 3 bullets to the chest. The second was older, hit in the abdomen and shoulder. Natasha worked on the younger one first. 45 minutes later, she lost him. She stepped back. Bloody gloves. Heavy heart. Then she moved to the second patient. This one she saved. When she finally emerged from surgery at dawn, she walked into the waiting room and stopped. There were men everywhere. Not ordinary men. Men in dark suits. Standing perfectly still. Watching the doors like soldiers. And at the center of them was Taehyun. But he wasn't dressed like a businessman anymore. He looked like what he was. A general. A commander. Someone accustomed to giving orders and watching them obeyed. When he saw her, something passed over his face. Pain? Fear? She couldn't tell. He walked toward her. Is he alive? She nodded, still trying to understand what she was seeing. He'll make it. Taehyun exhaled. Thank you. And then, one by one, every man in that room bowed to him. Not to her. To him. Natasha felt the floor tilt beneath her. She looked at the man she had been falling for. The man who had been so gentle. So attentive. And she really saw, who he was. What is this? Her voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. Taehyun met her eyes. We need to talk. They went to her apartment. Neutral ground. Her space. Taehyun stood near the window. He didn't sit. Didn't make himself comfortable. He knew he didn't deserve comfort right now. Ask your questions. Natasha stood across from him. Arms crossed. Who are you? And don't give me the businessman story. I'm exactly who I said I was. Park Taehyun. My mother is Suman Park. And what does your mother do? He was quiet for a moment. She runs an organization. It's been in operation for over 30 years. An organization. Yes. What kind of organization? He met her eyes. The kind that operates outside the law. The words hung in the air. Natasha laughed, but there was no humor in it. So you're telling me I've been dating a gangster. I'm telling you. I'm part of a world I didn't choose. One I was raised in. One I've never tried to leave. Why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want to lose you. So you let me fall in love with a lie instead? His face flickered. You love me. Don't do that. Don't change the subject. He stepped forward. Natasha. I have never been what you would call a good man. I've done things that would make you sick. I've followed orders that destroyed people. He stopped. Took a breath. But when I'm with you, I remember that there's something else. Something I buried a long time ago. What? The possibility that I could be different. Natasha stared at him. Her heart was screaming at her to run. But something else, something deeper, kept her still. Why should I believe anything you say now? You shouldn't. I've given you no reason to trust me. He paused. But I'm asking you to anyway. Because I've never felt this way about anyone. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you if you let me. The silence stretched. Finally, Natasha spoke. I need to think. He nodded. Take all the time you need. He walked to the door. Stopped. Natasha. What? I'm sorry. For lying. For putting you in this position. He looked back at her. But I'm not sorry for loving you. That's the one thing I've done right. Then he was gone. And Natasha was alone with a decision she didn't know how to make. 2 days passed. Natasha hadn't called. Hadn't texted. Taehyun gave her space. But Mrs. Park did not give him the same courtesy. She summoned him to her home. The Park estate was a fortress. Beautiful gardens. Traditional architecture. Armed guards at every entrance. Mrs. Park sat in her study. At 67. She was still striking. Silver hair pulled back. Eyes that missed nothing. She didn't stand when he entered. Sit. He sat. I know about the woman. Of course she did. Her name is Natasha. I know her name. I know her profession. I know her address. I know what she eats for breakfast. Mrs. Park's voice was ice. Did you think you could keep this from me? No. I was going to tell you. When? After you'd already compromised everything I've built. She stood. Walked to the window. A trauma surgeon. An American. A 33-years-old woman with no connections to our world. No understanding of what we do. She turned. She is a liability. A weakness. And you have been careless. Mother. Don't try to explain love to me. I've seen what love does. It makes men stupid. It made your father stupid. And he died because of it. The words hit like bullets. She's not a threat. Everyone is a threat. That's the first thing I taught you. Mrs. Park walked toward him. End it. Tonight. Walk away clean, and I will pretend this never happened. Taehyun was quiet. Then. No. The word hung in the air. Mrs. Park's eyes widened. What did you say? I said no. He stood. I've given you everything. Every order. Every sacrifice. Every part of myself that was capable of being human I gave to you. His voice didn't rise. But something in it shifted. I'm not asking your permission anymore. I'm telling you I love her. And I'm not ending it. Mrs. Park stared at him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, you would choose her over me? After everything. I'm not choosing anyone over you. I'm choosing both. That's not how this works. Then change how it works. Mrs. Park's face hardened. If you won't end it, I will. Taehyun went still. What does that mean? She didn't answer. She just turned away. You're dismissed. That night, Natasha called. We need to talk. In person. They met at a quiet restaurant. Neutral territory. Natasha looked tired. Like she hadn't slept either. She sat across from him. I've thought about this. Nonstop. For 2 days. And I don't know how to be with someone whose world is so different from mine. His jaw tightened. I understand. No. Let me finish. She leaned forward. I don't know how to be with you. But I also don't know how to walk away. You're the first person in years who made me feel like I wasn't too much. Too ambitious. Too difficult. Her voice cracked slightly. You saw me. The real me. And you didn't try to make me smaller. Taehyun reached across the table. Took her hand. Because you're not too much. You're exactly enough. She looked at their hands. Your mother. She won't accept this, will she? No. What happens then? I don't know. But I know one thing. He squeezed her hand. I'm not letting go. Whatever comes, we face it together. Natasha was quiet. Then slowly she nodded. Okay. I'm in. All the way. For the first time in days. Taehyun smiled. But neither of them knew what Mrs. Park was planning. 1 week later, Natasha received a message. An invitation to tea. From Mrs. Park herself. I believe we should meet. Woman to woman. No intermediaries. Natasha showed the message to Taehyun. His face darkened. Don't go. Why not? Because I know my mother. And she doesn't invite people to talk. She invites them to win. Natasha considered this. Maybe. But if I'm going to be in your life, I need to face her eventually. Then let me come with you. No. She touched his face. This is between her and me. If I can't hold my own against your mother, how am I supposed to stand beside you in anything else? He wanted to argue. But he knew she was right. Call me. The moment you leave. I will. The tea house was expensive. Quiet. Private. Natasha arrived exactly on time. Mrs. Park was already seated. She didn't stand when Natasha entered. Dr. Ellis. Please. Sit. Natasha sat. For a long moment, neither spoke. Mrs. Park poured tea with elegant, practiced movements. You're not afraid of me. It wasn't a question. Should I be? Most people are. I'm not most people. Something flickered in Mrs. Park's eyes. Interest? Annoyance? Both? My son tells me he loves you. He does. And you believe him? Yes. Why? Natasha held her gaze. Because I've seen what lies look like. I spent 5 years learning. Taehyun doesn't look at me like a liar. He looks at me like a man who's been alone and finally found someone who understands. Mrs. Park was silent. Then she reached into her bag and placed an envelope on the table. Inside is a check for $5 million and a first-class ticket to anywhere you want to go. Natasha didn't touch the envelope. What's this? Freedom. A chance to start over. Build your career somewhere else. Find a man whose family won't complicate your life. Mrs. Park leaned forward. You're an intelligent woman. You know what his life is. You know what staying means. Blood. Enemies. Looking over your shoulder forever. She pushed the envelope forward. Take this. Disappear. And I will let you leave with your life and your dignity. The words hung in the air. Natasha looked at the envelope. Then at Mrs. Park. You think I'm with him because I don't understand? Her voice was calm. Controlled. I'm a trauma surgeon. I've held dying men in my hands. I've watched light leave people's eyes while I tried to bring them back. I know what blood costs. She pushed the envelope back. I didn't survive my own battles to run from his. Mrs. Park's expression didn't change. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Natasha stood. Thank you for the tea, Mrs. Park. But I think we're done here. She walked toward the door. Mrs. Park's voice followed her. If you won't leave willingly, then you've made your choice. Natasha paused. Looked back. Yes, I have. Then she walked out. Natasha told Taehyun everything. The money. The threat. The cold calculation in his mother's eyes. His face went dark. She won't stop. You know that. I know. She'll find another way. She always does. Natasha took his hands. Then we face it. Together. That's what we said. He pulled her close. Held her like she might disappear. I won't let her hurt you. I know. But somewhere deep inside, both of them were afraid. 3 days later. Natasha was at the hospital. Late shift. Her phone buzzed. A message from Taehyun. Come home when you can. Something's wrong. She tried calling. No answer. Tried again. Nothing. Fear crept up her spine. She finished her rounds as fast as she could, then raced to his apartment. When she arrived, the door was unlocked. She pushed it open. Taehyun was standing in the middle of the room. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. What happened? He looked at her. My mother collapsed. Heart attack. The words hit Natasha like ice water. Where is she? The hospital. They're preparing for emergency surgery. His voice broke. Natasha, they said she might not make it. She grabbed her coat. Which hospital? Seoul National. But she was already moving toward the door. He caught her arm. What are you doing? She turned. I'm going to save her. She tried to destroy you. I know what she did. Natasha's voice was fierce. But she's your mother. And I don't let people die because they hurt me. She pulled free. Are you coming or not? He stared at her. And in that moment, he fell in love with her all over again. The hospital was chaos. Doctors running. Machines beeping. Orders shouted across hallways. Natasha pushed through to the cardiac unit. The surgeon on call, a younger man, was reviewing the scans. He looked up when she entered. Dr. Ellis? What are you doing here? The patient. Park Soo-min. I'm taking over. That's not protocol. I don't care about protocol. Look at those scans. You see the blockage? It's not standard. You need someone who's handled combat trauma, someone who's used to operating under pressure. She met his eyes. That's me. He hesitated, then stepped aside. She's all yours. The surgery took 6 hours. 6 hours. Natasha stood over the woman who had threatened her, the woman who had tried to buy her off, the woman who hated her. And she worked to save her life with everything she had. Her hands didn't shake. Her focus didn't waver. Because in that operating room, there was no enemy. Just a patient. Just a life that needed saving. When it was over, Natasha stepped back. Exhausted. Drained. Covered in the evidence of her work. The monitors beeped steadily. Mrs. Park was stable. The surgical team stared at Natasha with something like awe. She didn't notice. She just walked out and found Taehyun waiting in the hallway. He stood when he saw her. His face was desperate. Terrified. She nodded. She's stable. She'll live. He made a sound, something between a gasp and a sob. He pulled her into his arms. His whole body shook. She tried to pay you off. I know. I found out an hour before she collapsed. Natasha pulled back. I know. And you still saved her? She looked at him. Steady. Clear. She's your mother. And I don't let people die because they hurt me. Taehyun stared at her. Like he was seeing her, really seeing her for the first time. I don't deserve you. She almost smiled. Probably not. But you've got me anyway. 3 days later. Mrs. Park woke. Her room was quiet. Private. Filled with flowers she hadn't asked for. She was weak. Disoriented. But alive. The first face she saw was her son's. Taehyun sat beside her bed. Unshaven. Exhausted. Still wearing yesterday's clothes. How long have you been here? Her voice was a rasp. 3 days. She closed her eyes. You should have gone home. You almost died. I wasn't going anywhere. Silence stretched between them. Then Mrs. Park reached for her chart. Her eyes scanned the page. And stopped. Surgeon of record, Dr. Natasha Ellis. She stared at the name. She operated on me. Yes. Why? Taehyun leaned forward. Because she's not like us, mother. She doesn't weigh lives on a scale. She just saves them. Mrs. Park was silent. I offered her $5 million to leave. I know. She refused. I know. Mrs. Park stared at the ceiling. I have built my entire life on understanding what people want. What they'll do for money. For power. For fear. She turned to look at her son. I don't understand her. Taehyun almost smiled. Neither did I. That's why I fell in love with her. Mrs. Park was quiet for a long time. Finally. Bring her to me. Natasha stood at the door of Mrs. Park's room. She was nervous. Not afraid. But uncertain. This was the woman who had tried to erase her. And now, she had to face her. She pushed the door open. Mrs. Park was propped up in bed. Still weak. But her eyes were sharp as ever. Dr. Ellis. Mrs. Park. Neither moved. Finally, Mrs. Park gestured to a chair. Sit. Natasha sat. Silence. Then. You saved my life. Yes. Why? Natasha met her eyes. Because it was the right thing to do. Even after what I did to you? What you did hurt. But it didn't change who I am. I'm a doctor. I save lives. That's not negotiable. Mrs. Park studied her. You're stubborn. So I've been told. It's irritating. So I've been told. Something flickered across Mrs. Park's face. Not warmth. Not exactly. But something like acknowledgement. I don't forgive easily. I don't trust easily. Natasha waited. But I remember who saves my life. She paused. Perhaps we start there. Natasha nodded slowly. That's enough for now. Neither of them smiled. But something shifted. The war was over. What came next was still uncertain. But at least they weren't enemies anymore. 6 months passed. Things didn't magically become perfect. Mrs. Park was still guarded. Still proud. Still difficult. But she stopped fighting. She stopped trying to push Natasha away. And slowly, very slowly, she began to watch. Watch the way Natasha handled pressure. Watch the way she cared for Taehyun. Watch the way she never tried to be someone she wasn't. One afternoon, Mrs. Park asked to see Natasha. Alone. They sat in the garden of the Park estate, cherry blossoms falling around them. Mrs. Park poured tea. Her hands were steady now. She had recovered well. You're still here. Yes. Most women would have left by now. I'm not most women. Mrs. Park was quiet. My son is different with you. Natasha looked up. Different how? Softer. But not weaker. There's a difference. She set down her teacup. When I adopted him, he was hollow. like a vessel waiting to be filled. I filled him with purpose, discipline, strength. She paused. But I forgot to fill him with tenderness. I thought it would make him weak. She looked at Natasha. You gave him something I couldn't. Natasha didn't know what to say, so she just listened. I'm not good at this. Emotions. Vulnerability. I've spent my life seeing them as threats. Mrs. Park's voice was quieter now. But my son loves you. And you saved my life. Those are facts I cannot ignore. She reached out, touched Natasha's hand. I will never be easy. I will never be warm. But I am trying. For his sake. She paused. And perhaps, for mine. Natasha squeezed her hand. That's all I can ask. 1 year later. Taehyun and Natasha's wedding. Not a big event. Not a spectacle. Something quiet. Intimate. Meaningful. In a seaside garden, overlooking the ocean Taehyun's father had once loved. The guests were few. Close friends. Trusted allies. And in the front row sat Mrs. Park. Still elegant. Still guarded. But present. She watched her son stand at the altar. Watched him smile, really smile, for the first time in decades. And she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in his power. Not in his obedience. In his courage. The courage to choose love, even when it cost him. Natasha walked down the aisle. Simple dress. Natural beauty. No pretense. When she reached Taehyun, he took her hands. His voice was thick with emotion. I spent my whole life being pulled by loyalty, duty, debt. He paused. But you taught me something. What? That I'm allowed to want something for myself. And I'm strong enough to hold on to it. She smiled. So, what do you want? This. You. Yes. He pulled her closer. For the rest of my life. They exchanged vows. Simple words. Honest words. No grand speeches. No performance. Just two people, promising to face whatever came, together. Afterward, Mrs. Park approached them. She looked at Natasha. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then, you still haven't learned to bow properly. Natasha smiled. You still haven't learned to say thank you. Mrs. Park's lip twitched. Almost a smile. Stubborn woman. I learned from someone. And there it was. Not friendship. Not warmth. But something. Something neither of them expected. Something like respect. That night, Taehyun and Natasha stood on a balcony. City lights below. Stars above. She leaned into him. Your mother. She'll never fully accept me, will she? He wrapped his arms around her. She doesn't fully accept anyone. But she respects you. For her, that's more. Natasha smiled. I'll take it. Silence. Then, what are you thinking about? He looked out at the city. The empire his mother had built with blood. The life he had been raised to lead. And the woman beside him, who had changed everything. I'm thinking that I spent my whole life believing love was weakness. He turned to her. I was wrong. She looked up at him. So what is it? He kissed her forehead. It's the only thing that ever made me strong. #narrator close. She raised him in blood. She taught him power. But she never taught him how to love. That lesson came from someone she never expected. A woman who couldn't be bought. A woman who couldn't be broken. A woman who saved her life, even after being rejected. And in the end, the son she created became the man she never planned. One brave enough to honor his past. And still reach for his future. They thought love and loyalty couldn't coexist. They forgot that sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is choose both. If this story moved you, don't leave without hitting that subscribe button. And share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's been told they're too old, too different, too much. This story is for you.